This is the AIPER Scuba S1, and it does the one thing I actually care about with a pool robot. It keeps my pool clean through pollen season and windy weekends without me babysitting it. If you have an in-ground or above-ground pool and you are tired of dragging a hose vacuum around, this sits in that cordless robotic cleaner category. It is best for people who want a cleaner that can handle day-to-day debris, like leaves, seeds, and that yellow film of pollen, and still climb the walls to scrub the waterline. I am in a backyard with trees that shed constantly, so I need something that can quietly go to work while I handle everything else. The design is straightforward in a way that helps in real use. The body feels solid without being flashy. The handle is centered and shaped so you can grab it wet with one hand, which matters when you are fishing it out at the edge. The tracks on each side are like tank treads with a grippy rubber finish, and that makes the difference on slick plaster and smooth tile. Underneath, the intake spans a good portion of the bottom, and the filter basket sits right on top once you open the lid. The charging port is tucked into the back with a rubber gasket. You flip the cap, plug it in, and the seal keeps water out when you close it. There is a simple one-button control on top. No screen, no pairing, no app to fiddle with. All of that is nice on paper, but what made me appreciate the design is how little I think about it once it is in the water. Setup was low drama. I charged it out of the box, pressed the button to pick a mode, and lowered it into the pool. It has sensors that know when it is submerged, so it will not spin up on the deck. It takes a minute or two to sink and settle itself, and then it starts moving. There is a small internal fan that helps with propulsion. You can see a trail of bubbles when it is working, which is useful feedback from the other side of the yard. If I want it to focus on the floor, I tap once. If the walls look scummy, I choose the wall mode. If I want a full sweep, I pick the all surfaces mode. There is also an eco mode where it wakes itself up on a cycle. To toggle that, I press and hold for a few seconds and it confirms with a chime. None of this is complicated. It is one of those products you can hand to a house sitter and not need to explain much. Once it gets going, the pattern is smarter than the random bouncing you get from older robots. It runs straight lines, turns deliberately, then runs another pass to create a checkerboard coverage. It will climb the walls, touch the waterline, give a quick scrub, and then back down. On my pool, which is roughly 15 by 30 feet with a shallow end and a deep end, it finishes a full coverage pass in about an hour and a half of active cleaning. The battery is rated for up to 150 minutes, and in practice, I have never had it die before covering the entire pool. If it has extra time, it keeps patrolling and picks up stragglers. Performance is what matters, and this is where it won me over. My yard throws pollen, tiny seed pods, oak leaves, and the occasional palm frond into the water. The AIPER Scuba S1 grabs all of that. The pair of rubber tracks help it hold on to the pool surface and push debris into the intake. The suction pulls the fine stuff into the filter basket without stirring it back into the water. The first time I ran it after a windy night, the basket came out packed with leaves and a surprising amount of yellow dust. I rinsed the basket, dropped it back in, and went for another cycle. The water looked clear enough that I did not feel a need to run the pump as long that day. Wall cleaning is legit. Some robots do a token climb and bail halfway. This one goes up with confidence, reaches the waterline, scrubs a bit, and heads back down without losing traction. It does not fear the deep end either. I watched it climb out of the deep end floor up to the tile several times in a row. It does not magically remove baked-on calcium, but for everyday film and dirt, it keeps the tile looking presentable. The filter basket design is practical. It is top-loading, so you pop the lid, lift the basket by the handle, and shake it out. The mesh is fine enough for pollen and silt, but not so fine that it clogs immediately. After a heavy cleanup, I give it a hose rinse, and that is it. One thing I noticed is that the basket latch needs a deliberate click to seat properly. The first time I closed it lazily, the lid sat slightly proud. Now I pinch it firmly and it sits flush every time. Let me share a few real runs. During peak spring pollen, I set it to the all surfaces mode in the morning. It took a couple of minutes to sync and calibrate. I left it alone while I trimmed some hedges. When I checked back 20 minutes later, I could see the pattern in the dust on the floor where it had already been, and the waterline looked less grimy. When it finished, I pulled it out by the handle, opened the basket, and found a mix of fine yellow powder and the usual leaves. Another day after a storm, I used the floor-only mode because the walls were fine but the bottom was a mess. It made straight passes in the shallow end and then looped into the deep end. It missed a leaf stuck in a corner by the steps on the first pass but picked it up on the second. For weekly maintenance, I tried the eco mode. It wakes up on a schedule and does a lighter clean. I like that it keeps the pool from falling behind between full runs, though it is important to remember it is active. Once I reached in during eco hours and it bumped my hand when it started. Not a big deal but worth noting. Here is a specific use case that sold me. I host family on Sundays. Saturday afternoon used to be manual vacuum day. Now I charge the cleaner Friday night, drop it in Saturday morning in all surfaces mode, and let it go. After lunch, I pull it out, empty the basket, and if the deep end still looks busy, I send it for a short floor-only run while I skim the surface. By the time people arrive, the pool floor is clear, the waterline looks clean, and I did not spend the entire morning hauling a hose and pole around. There are a few smart touches that actually improve the experience. The sensor that prevents it from starting on land means I can prep it on the deck without worrying about the tracks engaging. The bubbles give a visual confirmation from across the yard that it is moving and not hung up. The tracks are forgiving on slightly uneven surfaces, and they do not slip when the tile is slick. The one-button interface is a relief compared to app-based cleaners that send notifications and require firmware updates. This is appliance simple, and I prefer that for a tool that lives in water. It is not perfect, and I want to be clear about that. It is a little heavy when you lift it full of water. The handle helps, but smaller users might want a hook to assist at the deep end. It also takes a minute or two to settle and start, which can feel slow if you are in a rush. On very fine dust days, a light film can remain on the floor corners that I still brush toward the center before a quick touch-up run. Steps are a mixed bag. It handles broad tanning ledges and the first step, but tight step corners sometimes need manual attention. And because it is cordless, you need to be disciplined about charging and making sure the charging cap is fully sealed afterward. None of these break the experience for me, but they are real-world quirks. Over several weeks, the pattern stayed consistent, the runtime was reliable, and the filter held a surprising volume of debris before it choked. My pump basket stays cleaner because more of the junk is getting captured in the robot, and my routine is simpler. I do not drag a hose. I do not backwash as often. I clean the robot basket, rinse it, and move on. If you have a mid-sized to large pool that collects everyday debris, and you want to keep the floor, walls, and waterline looking good with minimal effort, the AIPER Scuba S1 is worth a serious look. If you expect it to scrape off years of scale or handle complicated steps perfectly every time, you will still need a brush and the occasional manual session. For regular maintenance, especially in a leafy yard or during pollen bursts, it has been dependable and easy. That is the standard I care about for a pool robot. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel, drop a comment with your questions or your own experience, and tell me what you want to see next. Thank you for watching.